Standardized rules, these define how uh, values are represented. For example, the data format, unit of measure, that sort of stuff. They ensure consistency across different domains and geographies. The last one is validation logic. It's a built-in rules that validate incoming data against canonical definition. Uh, Definitions help to maintain integrity across systems. Right. So that's about canonical model. Now the second question comes in how to implement these things. So first is to define you know why it become G. It's supposed to be business goals. So define business goals. Start with the why. The what business problems are you solving through integration. So I think it's a fundamental. So if you do not know why you're doing it, then it's just a waste of time. Maybe um, reason could be anything. Maybe your HR team wants a 360-degree employee view, combining Workday, Dynamics, and Active Directory. Maybe your asset team needs a consistent data from Maximo and Salesforce. So reason could be anything. So we need to know why do we need that. Then we have second is inventory existing system. So it's a if you have watched my video earlier about the process integration process. So inventory of existing system is one of the crucial activity we must do in integration implementation. So the in inventory existing system, it could be like next we have to take the stock of current landscape. So we have to create a catalog, list every system that exchange data, Salesforce, Workday, Dynamics, whatever, Maximo or custom database, whatever it is. So we have to list all of them, capture how they expose data. Are they using API, come through files in an event, or it's a direct database call? Document formats, field names, and integration points. So just need to document all of them. This step uncovers overlaps and inconsistencies in data definitions, and that your canonical data model will eventually normalize. Now the third step is identify core entities. So now that you know your system, right, you have documented, identify common business entities that appear in more than one system. That's what I'm saying common means. So things like employee, asset, customer, purchase order, or work order, they are very common among systems, right? So focus on the entities that carry business meaning, not just not just technical tables. I mean, we need to think about business point of view. These become your building blocks for the canonical model. So once you have identify identified entities, and you know what are what valuable for business, so we have the list of all of them. The next step is design the canonical data model. Now design the structure of this each entity, define field, define types, relationships, and naming conventions. I mean, keep it simple. Include only attributes that are truly shared across systems. Use consistent naming. Do not just do randomly. I think you need to have some standard established before you do anything, and we need to follow that standard throughout the system. So, and we need to make sure that the CDM should feel neutral. It should not be inclined towards any system. So just it's not. It's for more is more business point of view rather than system point of view. The next step is select the right tools. So in Azure, you can build and manage canonical models using common tools like JSON schema for structure definition. You can use data lake, or even you can store in GitHub for version control. You need to have a in order to ingress or egress, you need to have a logic apps or Azure functions. For transformation, you might need API management for schema validation and governance, and data factory and synapses for ETL and ELT pipelines. So your tool set depends on whether you are integrating real-time APIs or might be batch data flows. So it depends on the implementation. The next step is map source systems to canonical format. Now the real transformation work begins. Each source system data must be mapped to and from the canonical model, right? So, for example, Salesforce contact might map to Canonical customer, and Workday's worker maps to Canonical employee. So use Azure Logic apps with Liquid template or Azure function for this transformation. So you have a choice. Either you can use Azure function or Logic app. So I prefer to use Logic app. That's easy. Once and less coding as well. So once you have done this once per system, you will never need direct system mapping again. I mean, you basically freeze it. The last one is to validate the any trait. So finally, test and refine. Validate that your canonical model can support every integration use case, from API to event driven flows. So you need to just make sure that all is working. Share it with the stakeholders, and data stewards for feedback. Basically, who is data team, and the other architects, they share with them. expect to iterate um, Expect to iterate new systems and new fields, and regulatory changes will also evolve your model. I mean, basically, you need to just communicate with the concerned people. All right. So think of the CDM as a living contract, not just a one-time design. I mean, it's just as system grows, as more system adds into your ecosystem of systems, you have to review it and change as per requirements. So what are the common mistakes we must avoid? So sometimes we do over engineering. So this is a very common mistake. Many architects try to make the canonical model represents every possible field from every system, and it quickly becomes a bloated and unusable. I mean, it's a massive canonical model, and that doesn't really help. The canonical should be minimal and pragmatic. I mean, it should not be. It should capture only the fields that are truly common across systems. Remember, remember simplicity scales. The more complex your model, it's harder it will be. I mean, to maintain and evolve. The second is misalignment with business terminology. Uh, a canonical model should reflect how the business thinks. I mean, it is about business, right? So make sure that if HR says worker, finance says employee, and IT says user for some entity, you need to agree on one shared definition. And the canonical is not just a I mean, it's not just technical schema. It's a business contract across departments. So basically, we are saying we're going to talk as common language across departments. Third one is ignoring metadata and lineage. When data flows across multiple systems, you must track where it came from and who changed it and how it transformed along the way. So Azure gives you the tools which you can use. For example, use Azure Data Catalog, Purview to manage metadata, uh, embed lineage information in headers for logs, and use application insight or event grid tracing for operational visibility. Without lineage, you lose trust in your data if you do not have proper information. I mean, when your integration debugging is required. So the last one is weak governance and change management. Finally, in that point, even a perfect canonical model will fail if there is no process to control changes. I mean, I know if there's no process to control it, people will just do changes as they wish. So always we have to version our schema and use like Git or DevOps, Azure DevOps repository for versioning. So make sure that we store all the information there. Treat the model like the code, like CI/CD and reviews and all, like whole process. So basically, what I'm saying is, we need to make sure that our canonical model are version controlled. It's not just anybody go and change it, because it's important, because it's like a middle layer between the systems. So system is talking to canonical model or in a canonical language, and if we mess this up, then it will hurt all the systems and it will hurt the business. So we need to make sure that we should not go blindly and just change things. All right. So looking into best practices for success, first is build build cross-functional alignment from day one. It is super important that we understand that your canonical model will only succeed if business, data, and integration teams design it together. I mean, it's a collaborative action. It's not just one person doing things and in isolation and tell everybody. It's like everybody's feedback. Um, HR, finance, operations, IT, all these departments all must agree. So all departments need to agree with the entity. For example, it's like employee or customer really mean. So if they understand the entity meaning and easy to implement from their team or in anybody who's implementing these models. Second is prioritize simplicity and reusability. Keep your model lean. I mean, focus on really what is common across the systems. Do not try to implement everything in canonical model. It will be a nightmare. So the simpler it is, the more reusable it becomes, right? So people can use it. If it's very complex, people will not use it. I think brain works this way. So try to avoid over engineering. Try to be make it try to keep it simple. To be honest, otherwise it will just so many problems. The third point is version schema and track changes transparently. So think about this way: treat your canonical model like a software code. It's not like something one time use, because it's a software code. You have to maintain it, you have to version it, you have to make sure that its governance is there. So just treat like a normal code. The fourth point is invest in metadata management and tooling. So might be there's some expenses like Azure Purview or data catalog. So just make sure that we are managing these things properly. Fifth is treat CDM as a living asset. We've already spoken about many times this thing. So treat as a living entity, and we might have to update these things as business grows or new systems comes in picture. So we have to update these things all the time. So it's a very much like a living document. All right. So tools I have already talked about. So for a defined schema, JSON schema or Avro you can use to store. You can store in an Azure Data Store, data lake, sorry, and or Git repo. You can validate using Logic App, APM policies, and versioning, semantic version like tags v1, v2, and mapping tools you can use is Liquid templates or XSLT format functions or Logic App. You can use any one of those things. All right. So now the last screen is what's the takeaway from these things. So simplify integration by creating shared data language. So the thing is, if we have so many systems talking to each other, and we tend to make it very complex. So we need to avoid complexity when we make sure that we have a canonical model in a very simple one. Do not try to use the only common fields. Do not try to put everything from every system in a canonical model. It will make it more complex. So map each system to a canonical model, not to each other. So then once we have canonical model in between, it reduces the dependency on other system, because we are not talking to system directly. We have a language in between. Keep models business driven, not system driven. So we have to make sure that we should not use. We have to just keep in mind that we are doing for business. So the business terminology need to be used, and we need to agree with each other, rather than just doing your own. Keep models business driven. Okay, the next point is govern, version, and evolve continuously. So I already mentioned many times this thing. Make sure that you have everything stored in repository, and version control, not just anybody go and change it. Treat your CDM as the backbone of enterprise integration. So it's super important that understand, uh, if you do not have CDM in place and you have like more than 3 systems, it just becomes nightmare. And if you have 40 plus system, which we implemented a couple of months ago, and without canonical model, it was so difficult to transformation, and it was just really spaghetti. Everything is flying everywhere. So in order to avoid those things, you just make sure that you have a efficient CDM model which helps the whole integration. So that's all from my side, and thank you very much for listening, and I hope you will join my subscription. Subscribe